Last year,
It's happened!
they went and took it.
He struck him out looking!
This year,
The Texas Rangers win the World Series!
they're here to run it back.
It's over!
This is Bleav in Texas Rangers, hosted by Mitch Ferreldis.
Welcome into another episode of Bleav in Texas Rangers. Admittedly, overdue. This episode, it's been a crazy past couple of weeks for me personally, so I apologize for not churning these out at a higher rate because a lot has been going on with the Rangers, especially since the All-Star break ended. But we're here now. We're taping this on Thursday morning, August 22nd, ahead of the Guardians series, just after the Pirates series has concluded. There's a lot of thoughts that I've had about the current state of this team that we're going to get into here. And then we're going to talk about some of the positives, and we're just going to kind of reflect on the season, because I feel like at this point, that's where we stand right now with the Rangers. And that's kind of the top story is, yes, they just had the series win against the Pirates, and it was really cool for Wyatt Langford to hit the walk-off yesterday the way he did. But it just further highlights a ton of issues that this team has had, specifically after the All-Star break. I'm not going to get into all the nitty-gritty numbers because then we'd just be here all day. I will emphasize this. Yesterday against the Pirates, they collected their first series win in about a month and their second series win since they came back from the All-Star break. The other being the Chicago White Sox, where they took 3 out of 4. And yes, anytime you take more games from the Chicago White Sox than they take from you, it was a good week. But when you're putting it next to the Pirates as the only team that you've been able to collect a series win against in the last month plus, then it shines a different light. Because if you look back at the schedule, these are the teams that the Rangers had lost series to since returning from All-Star break. The Baltimore Orioles, that was at home. The Toronto Blue Jays on the road, they got swept by Toronto. The St. Louis Cardinals on the road, they lost 2 of 3. Boston Red Sox at home, they took 2 of 3, or they lost 2 of 3, excuse me. Houston Astros at home, won the first one, lost the last 2. Yankees in New York, lost 2 out of 3. Red Sox, again, in Boston, lost 2 out of 3. The Minnesota Twins in Texas, lost 3 out of 4 at home. Until now, where the Pirates just took 2 out of 3. Or the Rangers just took 2 out of 3 from the Pirates to get their first series win since the White Sox during the last week of July. Which is crazy. It's almost been a complete flip of how they performed going into the All-Star break, where they got hot and they swept the Tampa Bay Rays at home. And they felt like they put themselves in a position where they could be back in contention before we know it. And of course, they sent 3 All-Stars to the game, which was in Texas. But then everything after that has just been disastrous. They got Tyler Mahle back from injury. Well, he's back on the shelf again. Max Scherzer came back from injury. He's back on the shelf again. John Gray, thankfully, just came back from injury, but I don't know what specific role he's going to serve. He came out of the bullpen the other day, so John could be doing just about anything down the stretch. How would you characterize this season, I guess is what I'm trying to lead to. You're coming off of a World Series. You're trying to defend. They're obviously doing a miserable job of defending the World Series title. Somebody else is going to win it this year. The Rangers are probably not even going to make the playoffs. So where do you stand with this season? Because as of right now, barring some sort of miracle, the Rangers are 12.5 out of the last wildcard spot. They are 5 games behind the Mariners, who are in second place in the division. And they're closer in the division, in the American League West, to the Angels and the Athletics than they are to the Mariners or the Astros. 5 games, or 4.5 games, ahead of the Angels and A's, and 5 games back of the Mariners and more behind the Astros. I don't think that we would have gotten to this point where we're wondering, how the hell did the Rangers get closer in the standings to the bottom than they did the top? And maybe there were some telling signs. The fact that they had not had a full complement of their team for most of this season. Josh Young just came back. He's had a couple of home runs, but he's still rounding into Josh Young form. Josh Smith was a pleasant surprise, but he's kind of slowed down a bit as the season winds down. Adolis Garcia has not had the best season. He's heated up a little bit lately, but it's not been a full, complete season for Adolis. Corey Seager's been Corey Seager. Marcus Semien has really taken a downtick. They were even hitting him third for a period of time. That was just trying to find other ways for the offense to do something. Like, it's been miserable. It's been rough. I can't imagine having to sit through all of these series and you're just hoping that you win one game and that's all that they can win. So this is me putting a nail in the coffin on the Rangers season. Yes, I know. There's been crazier things that have happened, but the odds of them turning it around, somehow making the playoffs, I just don't see it. And maybe you do, and maybe you disagree with me, and that's fine. But there's nothing that I see right now, and there's nothing I see from the team right now that would convince me that they're going to turn this around and make the playoffs with a month and a week to go. Here's another thing that really is telling to contrast the two seasons. So last year they won the World Series, right? Every year leading up to that World Series run was a losing record since 2017, I Bleav. They are currently under 500 right now. And if they finish this season with an under 500 record, it will be their 7th time with an under 500 record in 8 years. So winning season in 2016, winning season last year led to the World Series, obviously. And every other season around that has been a losing season. That's rough. And, that's the blunt way of me saying it. But I think, and Bochy had talked about it post-game, it's been humbling. Chris Young had talked about how disappointing of a season it has been. Like, these guys aren't blind to everything that has happened this year. It's not been good. I'm not going to go as far as to say, oh, well, they can't keep up the consistency next year. Anything can happen. They, as we know, they were very careful with their money this offseason, something we'll get into in a bit. And they kind of bought and sold at the deadline, but the buys weren't really that impactful. And the sell, now it's looking like, man, they really could have used Michael Lorenzen right now to kind of stop the bleeding in the rotation. Cody Bradford came back, and he's continued to look great, which is nice. And they have future prospects that they could look to in the years to come, one that we'll talk about at the end of this episode. But it's been a season from hell, I guess would be the best way to put it. We obviously didn't expect them to be this bad. We didn't anticipate this many injuries occurring for them this season. And at the end of the day, they're still the defending champions. So the expectation for them to perform well was expected, and they kept a good majority of their core together. And it's not like the guys that they would have brought back from the title run, so like Aroldis Chapman and Jordan Montgomery, who knows how they would have contributed for them. Jordan Montgomery has not been great for the Diamondbacks this year. Aroldis Chapman has been up and down for the Pirates. There's no guarantees. And I think that needs to be the biggest lesson here, is that they win the World Series, but there's no guarantees that they can do it again. And if we're to compare the offseason to how the team they just beat went, the Arizona Diamondbacks went heavy spending this offseason. They didn't win the World Series. They need to figure out ways to bolster their team. And you look at them now, they're one of the top wildcard teams and even pushing at a chance for the National League West. The Rangers, having won, for lack of a better expression, kind of got fat and happy and just let the offseason go, given all of the circumstances that were presented in terms of how they were going to upgrade this offseason. They figured that the majority of the pieces that they had were already in place and they hadn't needed to do much else. Well, maybe they did need to do a bit more. Or maybe they shouldn't have relied on building a team around injury-prone starting pitching. Not to sound like a dick. So, I mentioned the offseason a couple of times in that little monologue, rant, whatever. I mean, this whole podcast is a monologue. I'm by myself. A few weeks ago, August 13th, Ken Rosenthal published an article for The Athletic. And nothing has happened to my knowledge yet with the Rangers in terms of this particular strategy. But we're approaching a point where we're getting close to the end of this month of August. And typically, towards the end of the month of August, you will see players put in a position where they can become eligible for different suitors. And the reason being is that players are not eligible for the postseason roster if they're not on their team before the end of August. So what am I teasing? Would the Rangers consider cutting costs by waiving some of their expiring contract veterans before the end of this month? And Rosenthal, he does play both sides of this. He does play the devil's advocate. He says that the mere thought might seem preposterous for a franchise coming off the World Series title, but does also mention, as we've also mentioned, that the Rangers exercised financial caution this offseason because of the uncertainty with the local TV revenues. And we've touched on the Bally Sports fiasco all season. If they have salaries they want to cut, Rosenthal looks at particularly the pitchers, and pitchers that we had talked about ahead of the trade deadline too. Andrew Heaney, David Robertson, Kirby Yates, and Jose Leclerc. And if they were able to succeed in getting off any of those, Rosenthal points out that they could get back almost $6 million. He also goes on to say that such a maneuver would be a bad look, not just for the Rangers, but also the league. And he points out how the Angels did their massive dump last year when they realized they weren't going to make the playoffs. But he does also mention that the league is not really keen on the idea of this being a recurring thing every August, where teams are giving up on contention to save themselves some money. And if the Rangers were to do that, boy, would it shine a bad light on the league. This was the team that just won the World Series this past year, and now they're giving up? A weird turnaround, a weird 360 from a year ago, it would be if the Rangers did this. In my opinion, however, this would almost be beneficial for not just the Rangers, but for other teams that are trying to push for a title. Kirby Yates has been stellar this year. David Robertson has been another great sneaky pickup by Chris Young. Jose Leclerc, we know his history. He was valuable for the Rangers in the postseason, but he was also invaluable for the Rangers in the postseason. It was best of both worlds when it came to Jose. Andrew Heaney, he's been here or there. He's had some bad starts. He's had some great starts. He served in some clutch spots out of the bullpen, especially in the postseason last year. Teams will get value out of a left-handed starter or reliever, however they want to peg him. I just don't know if the owner of the Rangers wants this to be the look. And I don't know if he wants this to be the norm. And I think that the fan base is going to get really pissed off if they go about this quote-unquote cost-cutting measure just for the sake of saving a few extra million because of the TV deal uncertainty. There are some teams that have already made that sacrifice and have switched to having Major League Baseball produce their games. And you pay a flat fee if you just want to watch your team. You pay a little bit extra if you want to watch the entire league. And you don't get blacked out for your team. That's also rather nice. I just don't know what their plans are as far as television market and revenue and stuff like that. They obviously had this year contract with Bally, but this offseason they're going to have to renegotiate and explore again. And the company that owns Bally's is technically in bankruptcy. So I don't know how much longer it makes sense to keep with this strategy or this company. Generally speaking, it makes sense from the 29 other baseball teams looking at them standpoint for the Rangers to make these kinds of moves. But if the Rangers want to keep up the image of, hey, we're at least trying, we're competing, we're not going to do any of those silly shenanigans that our neighbors to the southwest were doing last year, then they're going to hold on to all these players. Unless they have a brighter plan, which is to say, move in some of the youth and just let them get a run in this final month of the season. That I would endorse is more opportunities for Jack Leiter to stretch out his legs because he's had a rough start to his major league career. A lot of runs allowed, but he's not going to get better if he stays in AAA. I hate to break it to you. The only way a Major League Baseball player gets better is if they pitch against Major League Baseball players or hit against Major League Baseball players. So Jack Leiter sitting in AAA and continuing to look as good as he does nothing for me at this point because I've seen how rough it has been in the major leagues. And the only way he's going to get better at the major league level is if he plays against major leaguers. That's my opinion. The same can be said about Kumar Rocker, who we'll get into in a sec, but he's been recovering from injury for most of this year. So I'm I'm not going to rush Rocker by any means. The chances of him making the roster next year, who knows? But I think it's a prime opportunity. If you're going to move on from some of these veterans, make the runway open for some of the young guys and give Jack Leiter some more opportunities in the rotation. Max Scherzer said he doesn't want his no trade clause waived. Well, maybe he would prefer to be on another team that can push for a title. I don't know who's going to pay for that money, because it's a lot of money for Max, but I don't know what his services are left here. He wanted to be on a winning team. He wanted to push for the postseason with this team. He doesn't want to move, but this team's not going anywhere anymore. All right, instead of ending on a negative note, let's talk about the positives. And I've mentioned the name Kumar Rocker a few times. For those unfamiliar with the journey of Kumar, he and Jack Leiter were teammates at Vanderbilt, and both of them were top 10 picks in the 2022 draft. The difference is Jack Leiter signed his deal with the Rangers when he was picked 2 overall. Kumar Rocker was selected 10th overall by the Mets, but because of a physical issue, I think it was, Kumar was not signed before the deadline and thus became a free agent after college. Kumar then went into independent league where he pitched himself back into form, and I think he was then drafted again. I think that's how it works. You get drafted again, or he got signed again, but he got signed by the Rangers and picked up by the Rangers. However the proper process was. Correct me, please. And now, after recovering from season-long surgery, he's been pitching primarily in Frisco. And I tell you, it has been very impressive what he's done so far in Frisco. In 19 2/3 innings pitched for the Rough Riders, Kumar has allowed just 1 earned run, and he struck out 29 batters. And if you want to make that ratio sound a little bit better, he's only walked 3 batters. There was even an appearance against Midland where he struck out 8 batters in 4 innings and allowed just 3 hits. Like, he's looked very, very dominant and much better than he did for, the complex Rangers in Arizona. He's actually looked very, very impressive. Now, they're not blowing past an inning count. He got to 4 2/3 the other night against San Antonio. But I don't know what their plan is for him for the rest of the year. He's obviously looking really good against AA talent. I would like to see him against AAA talent, just a little bit of a step up, higher altitudes and environments and stuff like that. But this is very promising in terms of if you're looking for someone for next year, and let's say they don't want to spend the money on Roki Sasaki, who I'm sure is going to get posted from Japan this offseason. Kumar Rocker looks like he could be on the rise very, very quickly. Could be on this roster by next year. Some of the true insiders are speculating, like the Evan Grants and the Jeff Wilsons, like the true diehards of the Rangers coverage. Shout out to them, by the way. I think this is only promising, and this is only a positive, given that he's pitched this well and has, karma cap, not gotten hurt again. It's not like he's had a bad injury history, but it is pretty telling when a team that drafts you 10th overall decides they don't want to sign you because of troubling medicals, so to speak. But I'm very curious to see where this takes him, and I'm hoping it leads to positive things for the Rangers, and specifically for Kumar, because it's been a long and tried journey for Kumar to get to this point in his baseball career. All right, we'll wrap things up by looking at the upcoming weekend. And so the Rangers are off today, taping this on a Thursday, like I said. Tomorrow, they will be in Cleveland to take on the Guardians for 3 games. Second matchup this season they've had with the Guard. First go around, if I recall correctly, it went in the Guardians' favor in Texas. So it'll be Nathan Eovaldi against Tanner Bybee in the first game. That'll be a 6:10 first pitch Central Time. Tanner Bybee on the year is 10-5 with a 3.33 ERA, and the Guardians are one of the best teams in the American League this year. Stephen Vogt's probably on pace to win Manager of the Year in his first year with the club. Nathan Eovaldi, 8-7, a 3.76 ERA. Saturday, it's going to be a matchup with John Gray and Ben Lively, a couple of veteran guys. John 5-4 on the year with a 3.75 ERA. Lively 10-8 with a 3.68 ERA. That's also a 6:10 Central first pitch. And then a Sunday day game, 12:40 Central. Cody Bradford, who's been excellent all season long, even though the season has been split into two parts for him. 4-1 record with a 3.56 ERA. And then Matthew Boyd, who does not have a record. He's 0-0 this season and has a 3.38 ERA. Should be a good series in Cleveland, but I'll be very curious to see how the Rangers perform, particularly offensively. Guardians have been one of the better pitching teams this year, and they've gotten surprise seasons, particularly I mentioned out of Lively. They've not had Shane Bieber all year, so the fact that they've been able to recover in that way has been very admirable. And they have an MVP candidate every year in Jose Ramirez, maybe one of the more underrated players in the entire league. Everybody knows how great he is, but he doesn't get talked about at the rate of, the Aaron Judges or right now the Bobby Witts and Gunnar Hendersons. Like Jose has been consistently year in and year out one of the best players in baseball. So it's not going to be an easy task for the Rangers this weekend, and it will ease up after this series, but no task for the Rangers has been easy since the All-Star break. And that's going to do it for this episode. So stay locked. I plan to get back in a better groove of consistency going series by series. I think there might actually be an opportunity with the second White Sox series coming up. I think I might get a chance to talk to my colleague, Greg Mraz with Bleav in White Sox. Be sure to check out the work that he does too. Greg's awesome. He's very energetic. He's very much fit for this role. So that'll put a cap on it, and we'll see if the Rangers make any bold moves in the next week or so. So until next time, Bleav in Texas Rangers.